I hope that you all had an opportunity to maybe connect with some new parents, yes? Yeah, make some new connections. Sí, me gustó alguien hablando español, muy bien. So I just wanted to take an opportunity, if you haven't met, like, I'm Miss Delatorre, or Doris, to the adults, Miss Delatorre to the kids, and I'm my great honor to be the principal here at Vannoy. I've been in the district for, well, I grew up in the district, so I haven't done that map yet, but as an educator, this is my 22nd year.
Wow.
I started off at CBE, and elementary is my wheelhouse. I was a second grade teacher, and then I was an RTI specialist, and I was an EL coach that whole time. And then I became an assistant principal at middle school at Canyon, where our program is going to continue to. And then I was invited here to come to Vannoy 5 years ago, next month. So it's very exciting that we have added to Vannoy of having the DLI program. So that's been something that our district has been, I know my parents wanted when I started in the district, and to finally have this, just so exciting to see it. Because we were talking about it, right? A year ago, we're like, oh yeah, DLI, it'll be great, and it's here. So thank you all, and I'd like to introduce the people who are doing the DLI program.
I'm Miss Val. Hi. I'm Maggie Aparicio. I am Marina Aguirre Sarobe.
All right, thank you. So, as you know, our teachers are just amazing. How many of you have your kids are already starting to start out that Español en la casa? Yeah. Or you're going somewhere and suddenly they say something in Spanish, like, wow, where'd that come from? So it's exciting to see your kids starting to use Spanish, and to be able to teach in 2 languages is not easy. How many of you are multilingual? Switching back and forth between 2 languages, right? It's a very difficult thing to do, and I don't know, for me, speaking Spanish is my first language, and I know when I switch back and forth between English and Spanish, I'll bite my tongue and I'm like, it's rolling those R's. But it's just those things, and it's difficult, and I know that our teachers are doing double the work, right? Because we're teaching 2 languages. So thank you very much to our teachers for all their hard work. So just some, So I guess maybe we should, I think we could pass the mic around, but I think there's a lot of us this evening. So maybe we could just, if you wouldn't mind just raising your hand if you are in Miss Val's class, or your children in Miss Val's class. All right, Miss Val's class. All right. Miss Aparicio.
Woo!
All right. And Miss Marina's class. All right, muy bien, great representation. So thank you so much for coming out. Just kind of, the purpose of this is not really a meeting, it was just a gathering. What I'm hopeful to do as the years progress is having outdoor events where we can invite all of our families. So this is our first start at, but I wanted to make sure that, you know, families are having questions, like a question of like, well, do I need to apply for the DLI program? That was a hot topic for our current DLI family, so we'll be answering that question, and what's gonna happen next year. So I wanted to give you some information of how things are going, what will next year look like, and then just some great resources that you can use at home with your children, right? Yes. All right, muy bien. So how are things going? So that first day of school was amazing. I think our teachers, I think after everyone had that look of like, it happened, and very, very tired, right? Nothing like that first day tired. How many of your kids came home and took a nap? I know the adults did, probably, as soon as they went home. But just the excitement of our kids, of being here on campus, it felt, at least that I could speak for myself, it was just an extension of Vannoy. But all of a sudden you hear those like, buenos dias, and I'm incorporating in the morning. So if you hear me in the morning saying, buenos dias, good morning, I'm trying to get the kids to just be able to do that. And our English-only students, that's just like the greeting that they just give me every morning now. They'll say good morning in Espanol. So it's just an appreciation of an extension of like, this is Vannoy and we speak 2 languages here. You know, that's one of the things here at Vannoy. So our students, as I mean, they have gone from learning how to hold a pencil and stay in a chair to starting to read in Espanol, which is just an amazing thing in the short amount of time, right, that's happened. I mean, kids excited to learn. Now starting, I've heard this morning, 2 littles in our DLI classroom starting to speak to each other in like Spanish. It was kind of broken, but they're starting. So just that excitement that like, oh yeah, we speak in 2 languages, let's just mix it up. And that's how you acquire language, right? Sometimes it's you're speaking, mixing a little English and a little Spanish, and I can say that happens in my, in my family. Even when I speak to my parents, it's a mix, right? It's that mix of that English and Spanish, but that's communication, right? And that's what's so exciting about it. So I think que todo va bien, ¿sí? See? Okay, good. So our kids are making great progress. All of them, and one of the pieces that I too want to remind families is that some kids probably aren't even speaking quite yet. They're just starting to brave and start speaking a few words in Spanish, and that's okay. Because when you walk into these classrooms and you hear the teachers giving them the directions in Spanish, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, I gotta go get a lápiz, and they just do it. They just know it because they know what the language means. They may not necessarily be producing it, but they're understanding it. All right, so ¿qué va a seguir el próximo año? So what's next? So we're end of January, and before we know it, it'll be last day of school. But what we're going to be having is our team of teachers worked really, really hard to make sure that we had a DLI report card. That's huge, because traditionally we just have an English report card and we just hit the switch to switch it to Spanish or simplified Chinese, and then that's it. But our teachers thoughtfully sat through and look at all of the standards that relate to the development of language of where our students are. So for this next trimester, that should be good to go. And so the report card will look a little bit different because it will have those Spanish specific standards in there. So, práctica, so keep practicando en la casa. So please practice at home. One of the pieces too is that some families didn't even know about this, but we have our students, our kindergarten students, switch. So what we do is we have recess time with a Spanish class and an English class so that they're interacting. And because there's so many littles, I don't know if you've seen them all here at the same time, we can't just have them all in the cafeteria or all in the cafeteria yard. So what we do is we stagger it, right? So then kids are intermingling with other classrooms. And so as you can see here, our classroom buddies will be switching in February and then in April. And then we will be doing more reading and more reading. So please, please continue the reading at home. Our students are starting to put their sight words together to actually read sentences. So we ask that you please continue that work at home, and we'll talk about some of the resources. But the kids are doing it. I'll walk into the classrooms, Ms. Delatorre, ¿te puedo leer a book? Or ¿te puedo leer un libro? And they're just so excited, and they're like, here it is, and I stay for the whole book. They read me their whole book, but they all have small kind of like guided reading books that's at their level that they practice in the classroom, and they're starting to read. And this is kindergarten. In TK, it's different because what we're working on in TK is building, these are our littles, right? How do we interact with each other? And doing it in Spanish, it's so cool to see them. I think it was yesterday, the day before, a little one asked another one for another, I think it was a pencil or a crayon from another one, and I didn't even notice it because my ear, I hear English and Spanish all the time, but I was leaving, I was like, wait a minute, they were talking in Spanish. So interactions and conversations in Spanish that are happening, so our littles are doing that. What we're going to do here at the school, we're going to be having assembly. So we did have an assembly, or something like November, December. It was African American Black culture music.
November.
Yeah, it was in November. It was an awesome assembly. and we were all in the amphitheater, and I think that was probably one of the first times that we've all been together at a school. And then we said, well, they did a great job. Why don't we have Latin American music, an appreciation of Latin American music? So we're gonna have another one in, I believe it's gonna be in February. So our district has partnered with outside companies to do assemblies. And it's a really great way of teaching our kids about other cultures through music. So, you know, when we drive home, maybe change up the music a little. Kids love music. I mean, you walk into the classrooms, kids are learning through music. So that appreciation, it's just something like that. How many of you are new to Vannoy, like this is your first year? Awesome, great. So we're bringing back something that we used to have. It's an amazing event, and it's called our Multicultural Night. So please make sure you write down that date. The Multicultural Night is where families within our community at our school actually have an appreciation of. So before the pandemic, we would have them in here. Our school was a lot smaller. We were within almost 300, and now we're in the 400. So our amphitheater. So this year we're gonna do it in the amphitheater. Anyone here who participated in Multicultural Night who wants to share? Anyone? Oh, you'll have to hold the mic. Anyone? Anyone?
I've gone before. It's really neat, and it's staffed by parents. So keep your eyes open as you know the parent club will be reaching out for volunteers to help really run the whole event. And there's tables for kind of the standard representation, but depending on the student population and your own personal cultural backgrounds, you can always introduce a new table, which I think is awesome. Lots of food, lots of activities, lots of cultural dress, music. It's really fun. Yeah.
Thank you, Melissa. Yes, it is a great event. So if your family, if you want to celebrate with us, your cultural background, please, the VPC will be reaching out. So that's a great opportunity for families to share their own culture and share it within our community. So I think one year we had, that family moved on, but if anyone knows how to make tortillas a mano, we're looking for people. So that was fun because the kids would make tortillas and then they'd, on the hot plate, then make quesadillas. So it was a really great event. So different opportunities. It doesn't necessarily have to be food. It could be art, music, anything like that. I think it's a really great way to bring all of our Vannoy community together. So that will be April 28th. And then the Cougar-thon. So any VPC parents here? I see some. Are we looking for volunteers for Cougar-thon?
I think so.
Yes.
Sure, yes. Yes.
Absolutely. That's a really great way to get involved. And it's a beautiful Cougar family event. So please mark down that day. And that will be a really great event. So these are just kind of some highlights of some things that we're doing just around here at the school. Any questions about any of the events? Yes?
Prior to COVID, Cougar-thon was more open and
Yes.
in the afternoon, like after school as opposed to during school hours. Do we know what it looks like this year?
We're planning for it to be how we were doing it in the past.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like after school hours and all families invited
Yes,
kind of thing.
yeah, we're doing the whole thing, so we need all of you to help, please.
Yeah.
It's a big event, so, last year, we had to do it during the school day, and it was during PE times and only by grade levels because we couldn't combine kids or groups, and volunteers weren't allowed, and yeah. We're not gonna think about those days. So el próximo año, so this is next year. Just some information about next year. Our current DLI students will continue to be in DLI. I hope everyone, right? See? See? Okay, van a seguir. You're gonna continue in the DLI program. You don't need to do anything. You don't have to fill out a form again. You don't have to do, your children, if they're in the DLI program, are enrolled in the DLI program. So they will continue on. So our TKers will become kindergartners, and our kindergartners will become first graders. So you do not need to do anything about the re-enrollment, but you will need to do registration, but that's for everyone. So you don't need to do anything different, you're in the program. The only thing is though, if you are thinking of moving, you won't be continuing here at Vannoy, which I hope no one's leaving. Nadie se va, huh? Right? No one's leaving. Please let me know sooner rather than later, because then that opens up a spot for someone else who might be on the wait list from last year. And that's just because, I mean, people want to get into the program. So the other thing too is that we're currently hiring DLI teachers. So if you know anyone, I don't mind stealing, teachers from other schools, who are interested in teaching DLI, please spread the word. We're on EdJoy. We're looking for first grade teachers. We're also currently interviewing also for, we will interview also for an RTI specialist. So this would be a bilingual RTI specialist. RTI stands for Response to Intervention. So this will be to help support our littles next year who are, and we currently do have RTI going on. Does anyone want to speak about RTI? No? See?
All RTI is if a student is needing additional help in math or in language arts, we identify that and then we just work in a small group. And so we are very fortunate. We have Maestra Marina. She comes into my classroom for a half an hour and then I'm able to use her classroom with a small group, and then we do intensive work with that small group, and then I come back and Marina goes next door to Val's room and does the same thing. So she's doing academics with the other rest of the class, so they haven't missed a beat and they love having her there. And then we get the opportunity to work with the small group intensively on specific areas of need. And those groups rotate depending on who needs what, because that's what happens all year during kindergarten. You know, you start seeing that the kids catch on at different times, and that's all the way it should be. So yes, we're grateful for that. But there'll be an actual person who will do that next year who's bilingual.
Awesome, thank you so much. Muy bien. So yes, and this happens after Miss Marina's students have left for the day. She doesn't go in the room with all her kids, so. No. So, but the benefit of having an RTI specialist who will support our students to help them to grow and to reach the level. So that's why it's so important to have the partnership at home, because them just coming to school and we need to practice, right? It's kind of like, I have a gym membership, but I never go to the gym. It's important that we're continuing to do that at home. So practicing those skills that they're learning at school to continue at home. Our first graders, well, our TKers will be going up into our current DLI kindergarten classrooms, and our first graders will be moving up to rooms 10 and 11. So that's not this wing, but the wing behind it, and those two classrooms will be together, and that will be 2 rooms for next year. And we are currently, it's now open enrollment for new DLI TK students. So do any of you have any littles putting in the DLI program? So if you're interested in putting them into the DLI program, please make sure, because you have priority. So if you have children right now in Vannoy, enrolled in Vannoy, your children have priority to get into the DLI program for next year. So please make sure though that you do your enrollment in Aries and also fill out the application on the district website under a DLI program. It's really at the top, says in English and in Spanish. So please make sure, and also if you know any friends or your neighbors has little ones, please spread the word. We really want to make sure that people know about the DLI program here at Vannoy. We will be taking students for our TK, because all of our students in our TK will be moving up to kinder, and then our current kinder students will be moving up to first grade. So because our TK is only 1 classroom, there will be space for a kindergarten class. We will be mixing the kids. So if you were, you know, in Miss Marina's class, it's not that we're all just going to put them, you know, in, you know, Miss Aparicio's class. They will be mixed. So they will be mixing throughout as each year. Right? So it's not like, oh my gosh, I've been I've been with Val for 3 years. No, they will be mixing. They'll know each other, right? So they might be in the classroom with, TK together, and then they're not together in kindergarten, but then they're together in first grade. So we want to make sure that kids, have different opportunities with other students. So, but please spread the word, because the best way to get news out there is by talking about it, right? And so please spread the word to neighbors, people that you know who are interested in the program. And then also we will be doing a DLI get-together for new families like we did in May. If any of you are interested in coming, you're welcome to come to this event, but I'm really looking for maybe 2 parents or 3 who would like to talk about your experience as a parent that's in the DLI program. You'll get to hold the microphone and be in front of a whole lot of people. Yeah, I'm not selling it very well, but you could practice your public speaking skills, which is always awesome. Coming from a little one, when I was little, any time that I'd have to do public speaking, it was like, can't speak anymore. So just some resources, and I'm gonna let our teachers talk about them, if that's okay. So I linked, oh, sorry. They're just like TKers, they're just taller. So Marina can speak towards, Marina, you wanna speak? No.
Hi.
Don't be scared by all my tabs. Oh no.
Hi. So this is all the songs and everything that we are learning in TK class. So I put every month what we do each time, and sometimes it's me singing, sometimes it's me reading a book. I'm sorry, I don't like to speak in English in front of so many people. So I am shaking, I'm sorry. So it's what I do for the parents and the families to practice at home, because they are still, I don't expect in TK to read. That is not the goal. And then, at the same time, yes, so there are a lot of books and games, all of them in Spanish. I didn't know that, but I learned that you can do something in, yes, like,
Right here, right?
yes, that only in Spanish. So that way the kids, they cannot do it in English. They don't have another option, only in Spanish. And they can play games, they can write letters in Spanish, they can listen books, different books. It's a lot of fun. So that is all from TK. Sorry.
Gracias. Muy bien, Marina. So there are great opportunities for you to help support at home. And your kids know about these. So please make sure that you check in and say, hey, when you're at home, when you're at school, what is it that you work on your computer? All of them have Chromebooks, but I think they stay at school, right? Yeah. Yeah, so they have iPads. So please make sure that if you at home practice with them, these are all web-based sites that they could go on and work on. So Footsteps to Brilliance is open for our TK and Kinder and moving on. So you can go ahead and log on. And I think everyone, there's actually, if you go to our district website, under families, it has information on there. So you just click and then create your account. But for the most part, our kids should already have one. And it should be when they log into their Google account. And recursos, so resources for our Kinder DLI. All right.
So we have 2 kindergartens, so we do things slightly differently, but I'm just gonna speak to, we plan together, we are constantly talking, so we do a lot in sync, but there are slight differences. This is what My Clever would look like when the kids get it, so hopefully everybody has seen this at home. As we said before, especially right now, if your child came into the program with a limited amount of Spanish, they really have a lot of receptive language. So they are understanding a tremendous amount. They're not producing it yet, which is, that is what we would expect, that we're trying to get them now to start to produce it. But we want to expose them as much as possible to listening to Spanish. So they do use, I use it probably about 20 to 25 minutes a day. We're able to get them onto the computers. So we would love it if they could also spend a little time at home as well on these resources. And the nice thing is they can do it over the summer as well. So that's really going to be critical, is that they get that exposure over the summer as well. So Raz Kids, they have an account, so that's a great resource. It has leveled books, so they're able to listen to the books, and then they're able to, after it's read to them, they also have an option to go ahead and record themselves. And if you walk in my classroom, between the Raz Kids and the Footsteps to Brilliance also allows them to sing songs or poems that we've learned, and they can record themselves, which they love to do. It's just a whole bunch of noise in there as they're and their full bravado just going at it and singing in Spanish so that they can then listen to themselves. So if they could do that at home, it'd be fantastic, because then they're producing the language and there's not all the rest of the ambient noise that's going on from the classroom. But it's a fantastic feature that we have with the Raz Kids and the Footsteps to Brilliance. So what I tell the kids with, especially the Raz Kids, is to go ahead and listen to the book being read several times, and when they feel ready, then they can give it a shot and try and read it themselves. And it's okay if they've memorized it. They're learning vocabulary on top of learning how to read. And so that is what we've been really focusing on, is just trying to develop language, develop vocabulary so that they understand it. And now is the time that we're really focusing on getting them to just try to produce it. Our focus is for them to enjoy the process all the way and not to stress about it. One of the things we say is, they'll say, oh, at the beginning they would say, oh, this is really hard, because they're listening to us speak in a language they don't understand. And we just say, yeah, it is hard, and we can do hard things. And they're like, oh, yeah, we can. And so now whenever something is hard, they're like, you know what, it's okay, because I can do hard things. So they really have a fantastic mindset. We're so proud of all of them, because it is a big deal. They're 5 and 6 years old, and they're listening to us speak, and most of them, a majority of them, they didn't have any language coming in, and they're listening to a language that they didn't understand before. So, then our class websites also have a lot of the resources, just like Marina's has the songs. We work together, and we have a song every single week. So hopefully your children have been singing those songs, but that really helps with their fluency, because even if they don't have the way of speaking yet and coming up with the words, they're able to pronounce the words and they're singing the song. So that really helps build up their confidence and also their ability to pronounce the words. So, and we just have a blast with those anyway. And they do understand what all the words, we do teach them what the words mean in the songs, so they understand what they're singing. And then I put my sight words on here, and I've had the kids, starting this week, actually go into their sight words, and I taught them how to access it so it can be, they can see it as a move, being able to see the slideshow, and they're just belting out the words on their own. So having those words, if you could practice those at home, it's really important for them to have these common words, the high frequency words, memorized, so that as they're reading, they'll have that fluency. They don't have to sound out every single word, because they're already dealing with having to figure out, they don't know what that picture, they might see the word piedra, but they don't know that a rock is piedra. So they're going, they're already needed to sound out some words, and it'd be nice, if they're able to have some fluency by knowing those sight words. So we try to have fun with everything now. It's not like it's a task, but they love belting those out and feel very confident in that. So especially over the summer, highly, highly recommend getting on there and making sure they practice them, 5 or 6 minutes a few times a week, just to keep them, so they're ready on first grade and they remember the words. And then we just have songs, so those are the math songs that we have right now so that they can remember all the math. And I know that a lot of times at home there's a parent that does not speak Spanish, so we do try to provide those so that they can hear it. Same with Benchmarked, they have all the books that we have, physical books that we use in class are on the Benchmark digitally, so they have exposure to those books in class. Those are the books that we read, so they can go in and listen to those books as well and read them and record it. So, and then just some other things that we've started. I don't know, in both of our classes it was raining a lot, and so during recess and lunch we put 15 minutes, we had 15 minutes to have a movie. So I started on my Netflix account, this is something I did last year with my students, Masha and the bear, but in Spanish it's Masha y Oso. I think originally it's in Russian, so it's just the right amount of dialogue, and she's very clear when she speaks, and it's interesting, and the kids adore it, and they will listen to that in Spanish without any qualms. They don't, they absolutely love it, right? So now we're starting to have them, try to put 5 or 6 minutes at the end of the day so that they're getting that more receptive language and they're understanding it. They get so excited when they hear words that they understand, and then they start using those words. So if you could try and do that, that's a fantastic tool, especially on weekends and over the summer, to use your Netflix account, and you can go ahead and just put it to Spanish. I even showed the kids how to do it, so if you don't know how, they can show you. But other things that are great is like Curious George. If you go onto YouTube, they have like Curious George little, I'm a child of the 70s, so I remember Curious George from back then. But it's all in Spanish, and what I do is I put it at 0.8 instead of the full speed. And so it's just at the right speed where it's still interesting. There's only a certain amount of dialogue. They're interested in the story, and they're understanding a huge portion of it. So I just think, if you could do this over the summer, it would be fantastic. And then on the other side, those are just, just books that I found on Scholastic does books, which are great. You can just go to Scholastic Books in Spanish on YouTube, and those are fantastic productions of these books, and you just do a read aloud in Spanish.
I have a sample that I set aside.
Oh, awesome. So anyway, these are just some suggestions to do at home. If you have, I know it's hard during the school year, but during the summer, I just highly suggest that you get a chance to do that. And just anytime you can have your child try and speak Spanish, just give them, they really react well to positive reinforcement. So just that's what we're also trying to do in class, is just try to get them as much as possible to try and, just pepper their language in with Spanish, and try and, like, there's certain phrases that we tell them they have to speak in Spanish now, and we're gonna keep adding on to those. Like if they want me to open up anything, and at recess they have to say it in Spanish. If they want to use the bathroom, they have to say it in Spanish. So just trying to get them to use their Spanish, and they always know if they don't know something that they can tell us in English, and then we'll tell them how to say it in Spanish, and then they can repeat it. So there's no stress. They know that. She doesn't want to add. Okay, I'm all done talking.
So, how many of you may be doing some travel over the summer, and the kids have their iPads or their tablets? You could download, the Netflix in Spanish, so that the kids have it.
Like it.
Yeah.
At least in class.
So on that long drive, wherever you might be going, or long flight, they're going to be sitting there for a while anyways, right? So why not enjoy and also hear the language? Because that's how our kids are picking it up, by hearing it. And they're getting meaning from what they're seeing. So I just took one of my personal favorite stories when I was a second grade teacher, was the Streganona series. So this is through Scholastic, and you can find it on YouTube. Hopefully it works.
Ganón, por Tommy de Paula. Hace mucho tiempo, en un pueblo de Calabria, en la punta de Italia.
I will not have you sit through the whole thing. It's my favorite book. But it's in Spanish, and I mean, just to have that opportunity, right, it's like books that, you can read to them in English, and then they can hear it in Spanish. So these are just some, activities that you could do, like, you could go through a whole series of books. There's just so many things that have been translated, that are out there, so it's not that you have to buy anything, it's free. But it's a really great opportunity for kids, just to hear it in English if that's the only language you're able to speak, and then hearing it in Spanish. So, and then having a conversation about what was the story about, and checking for meaning. Yes?
So the kids will have access to like the Hard Discover over the entire summer.
Yeah, they should. Yeah. Every student in the DLI program will have access, so we could see about making sure that everyone has stuff before they head off to summer. Yeah. And I think this was it, and I think you already mentioned all this, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I just can't, I can't emphasize enough that it's really okay, but not okay, it's fantastic for you to read. If you do not speak in Spanish, to read in English every day and talk about the book, because those skills transfer. So, and when you read to them, it shows them a love of books. And also, I know a lot of kids have a third language. So whatever language you're able to read with them and bond together with that love of reading, but then asking them questions about the book, those are skills that transfer. And that's something that's kind of harder for us to do in class, because we're reading the books at a slower pace, we're trying to develop the vocabulary, so we don't have as much time to really get into those deep, books and have deep questions. So for you to do it at home, it's really, really important, and just enjoy that time and then talk about books in whatever language that you share together. So if you could, just really try and keep that up, that's going to be something that will serve them later on. As they are reading the more difficult books and understanding them in Spanish, they'll be able to have the conversations because they're used to having them with you.
And then also, I think, mentioned here is, doing simple math activities, on the way home. Like, okay, we're going to count in Spanish how many stop signs we see, or how many, red lights we see, so that they're practicing those skills, just anything, just driving home. Or like, okay, vamos a contar, let's see how long it takes you to brush your teeth, all right, vamos. But just practicing things where they are actually hearing the language. But please, please encourage them to speak Spanish, but also if you have, just as Maggie shared, it's so important to also, if you have another language, a third language, that you not lose that language too. Please continue to use your primary languages at home too. All right. So that's all we had for you. Thank you so much for coming out. I hope that you were able maybe to exchange some phone numbers or emails with someone so that you have a new family that you now know. And we'll be continuing to send out information, so we'll set up another time for us to come together, hopefully when it's warm.